Yeah, I got you, bro. I got you. Islamo. You know, we just got. I just did a tie with my muftis. We had a turban rapping. I'm about to play the film now, though. No, no, no. I didn't. I didn't do. I don't do that stuff on YouTube. On YouTube, I do it privately with my students and muftis. So we just had a turban rapping class, and I showed them how to wrap their turban and their she mags and things. But let me hit you back, fam. Yeah, I'll be out there in a couple weeks. Islam. Peace. All right, play this film. Yeah. We just had a turban rapping class with my muftis on private Zoom, getting all my muftis how to tie their turbans and their she mags. So let me play this film. If you're looking for pictures and things, it's in these books here. That's to show you. It is books, even though they try to put stuff in black and white. I have a full library with all these books PDF available. I have maps and everything for all this stuff.
around $10,000, and it's all online. It's actually not from real estate. If you're someone that's looking to get in. Wow. Salawan. Hey, 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 hey. Hey, peeps of the chat, peeps everyone here tuned in. It's been a while. I put up a video or something like that. I just wanted to catch up with you guys and just do a little recap of my series because it's a 20-part video series, almost 40 hours of it. So try to condense it, grab the best parts of here, the best info, try to recap it with you guys. A lot of new.
So he just talked. I'm gonna fast forward a little bit because he's just getting you warmed up for the film. Some of us impatient.
And conquest, which we are still under and subjected to. Much has happened to bring us to this moment, to this point. But the time has come for you to know the difference between foundational, factual, recorded truth over Alex Haley, African diaspora fairy tales. No disrespect to anyone, We're just talking about a real Holocaust, a real genocide, a real transatlantic slave trade. Let's let history speak for itself over personal feelings and personal agendas. I hope you enjoy and understand these next video parts. I have. Just for a moment. I'm gonna get a better quality.
So the film be tripping, man.
Virginia and its racial legacy. Freedom suits were common in colonial Virginia. Although defined as property for almost all legal purposes and denied rights of citizenship, slaves could allege illegal enslavement and sue for their freedom. So did you know slaves could sue for their freedom? Courts recognized such claims throughout the slaveholding South from slavery's 17th century beginning, so we're talking about the 1600s, onward. These suits offered one of the few routes to manumission in early America. The ordinary posture of the Robin versus Hardaway case, though, belied its extraordinary result. The court's decision marked a watershed in the legal history.
Y'all see what he reading, right? Making Indians white, the judicial abolition of native slavery in the revolutionary Virginia and its racial legacy. It's the documents right here. We did all this in academia, man. When I tell people it's only one science, no matter how you feel.
Of Virginian slavery. It was the first recorded holding of an Anglo-American court. That maternal descent from American Indian alone established the right to freedom. This outcome was remarkable in the context of early America, where despite present-day conceptions that all slaves were Africans, Indian slavery was ubiquitous. All right, you hear that? Not all the slaves were so-called Africans or people that were bringing from the Caribbean. Indian slaves could be found in all 13 mainland British colonies in 1772. Right, so we already know that most of the Indians were being enslaved. We read that in the past video, up until at least the time of Revolutionary War, which was 1776. They were working side by side with the so-called Negroes or Africans that they were bringing up from other parts of America, not Africa, as well as in the French and Spanish colonies. So again, this article has footnotes, right? And you can see the sources, a lot of verifiable scholarly university legal sources, all right? So that's why I'm reading this article. Continues, says, in Virginia alone, thousands of descendants of enslaved Indians toiled alongside African slaves on the plantations. Thousands of descendants of enslaved Indians. So where are their ancestry in these plantations? How come we never saw that? Light-skinned, right? So-called Mongol, right? Looking people. Where are they? Where's the ancestry? Where's the mixture? Right? There should be more mixture in these southern states. There's so much, thousands of descendants of enslaved Indians. Where is their descendants, right? We only see so-called Negroes, right, in these places, in these plantations all our lives. Known that in University of California library, in his book,
y'all see the science, right? I want y'all to. I'm trying to slow it down so everybody can catch
just from this app on my phone.
The books and things and the literature and write it down.
Okay, so
is from.
And I'm gonna come back to it. I'm gonna offer it off, and you can see. I'm slowing it down. A lot of people wouldn't do it, but I want you to see for your eye. Y'all see that? All right, let's proceed.
1836. All right. So let's see. All right. So now we're gonna get to the part that's gonna correlate to what we've been learning, right, about the characteristics. As there were formerly in America, as now, tribes of all complexions as elsewhere: yellowish, olive,
And if my mufti's on here,
tawny, red.
I want to narrate. And if my mufti's on here, here go the books. Just want us to see. We have to have everything.
Brown, incarnate, or white, and even blackened or Negro-like. Again, blackened or Negro-like. How much more correlation do we need? It's actually a journal or letters that were written to the Secretary of the Smithsonian Institution by J.
Y'all see it? I'm gonna keep going slow for everybody can see it. I know some people are like, oh, I didn't catch it, and I say it's there. I like to go slow for you can see it all for yourself. Bureau of American Ethnology. See that? Everybody got it? And I ain't gonna stop it no more. I got all the books. That's why I would always encourage people to be members, man. Because all these books I have in the library. And you can have them, especially if your kid is in school. Wouldn't that be amazing? For them to talk about something that's will give history. So let's proceed.
W. Powell, he had a whole bunch of these volumes. They're called the Annual Report of the Bureau of American Ethnology. This is volume 19, or the 19th annual, as you see here, report. This comes in two parts. In part one of this, which was written in 1900, it says, in some part of the book, it says, and I have the book, so I'm the one who made this image. So, in regards to the contact between the two races, by which such stories could be borrowed, one by the other, it is not commonly known that in all the southern colonies, Indian slaves were bought and sold and kept in servitude and worked in the fields side by side with Negroes up to the time of revolution. So they're saying there was Indians working in the fields, right, in all these plantations, all the way until 1776 at least. All right, so which one was the Indian and which one was the so-called black or Negro? Well, how can you tell them apart? How come? I mean, we've never seen any difference growing up, right? It's always showing us a so-called Negro as a slave. All right. Continuing, it says not to go back to the Spanish period when such things were the order of the day, and they're talking about, and we're going to see in the next parts of this video series, how the Spanish and Portuguese was enslaving the American Indian by the thousands, We find the Cherokee as early as 1693 complaining that their people were being kidnapped by slave hunters. Hundreds of captured Tuscarora and nearly the whole tribe of the Appalachian were distributed as slaves among the Carolina colonies in the early part of the 18th century, while the Natchez and others shared a similar fate in Louisiana. We know the whole Natchez was chained up and sent to the Caribbean. We read that in Lies My Teacher Told Me. And as late as least of 1776, Cherokee prisoners of war were still sold to the highest bidder for the same purpose. At one time, it was charged against the governor of South Carolina that he was provoking a general Indian war by his encouragement of slave hunts. Furthermore, as the coast tribes dwindled, they were compelled to associate and intermarry with the Negroes until they finally lost their identity. That's how they're describing it here, but it was always you, and we're classed with that race. So they're saying the Indians became the Negro. That's what they're saying. We're classed with that race. We're classified together, so that a considerable proportion of the blood of the Southern Negroes is unquestionably Indian. Again, so that a considerable proportion of the blood of the Southern Negroes is unquestionably Indian. You are Indian. It's unquestionable.
Annual report of the Bureau of American Ethnology to the Secretary of the Smithsonian Institute, Volume 19. A considerable proportion of the blood of the Southern Negro is unquestionably Indian. As you can see here, Ute Warrior, so-called Negro, Amanda Lewis, MTV News, Creek, Blackfoot. Alright, so as again, a significant amount of the blood of the Southern Negroes is unquestionably Indian, alright? So make sure you're getting all these books. I'm gonna be sharing, whatever comes up as I can, all these books, alright?
Don't worry, Muftis. I got them all for y'all.
132 ends majority rule in Arizona,
Don't even
allowing
trip.
just 41% of voters to block funding for firefighters,
We have a
schools,
good teacher.
even nursing homes.
That's
Protect
the
our
source.
freedom to
That's what you.
determine our
That's what you
future.
connected to.
Vote no on 132.
I'm making this quick video because it
Come
has
on,
been
commercials.
1 month since joining
How
the
you doing?
Cashflow 101 system, and so
When we're coming up, it was a bad stigma, I guess, to be Native American. And so, I mean, you was just classified as black, or that's the way you went. And, a lot of the older people, they never told you. I mean, it was a long time before I really found out what my heritage was.
A lot of people that go through the museum, then they go into the portrait gallery, the last exhibit that you're going to see on the second floor, and there's portraits of Mashantucket Pequot people. And they walk in and they're like, they're not Indian, they're black.
American.
If you look at the old censuses, you'll see people who clearly we know are Native American ancestry categorized as colored people or mulattoes.
The Art of Terracotta Pottery in Pre-Columbian, Central and South America by Alexander von Wittenau.
So it be stopping, the film be tripping, internet crazy.
Because it brings out the resistance to the self-evident theses of this book, to wit, that our ancient artists have recorded various old world races in pre-Columbian America. Alright, look at her, look at this, look at his hair, look at the features, look at her hair. Alright, it says here, head number 12A, which is this one, head of Totonac, sun dancer, Veracruz, Mexico, classic period. This head was a remarkable affinity with the famous head of Egyptian Queen Tai in the Berlin Museum. What? So this looks like the famous head of the Egyptian Queen Tai. So are we really looking at the real one? The real depiction of it. It says B over here, head of a sacrificed Negro, showing 3 wounds from Veracruz, Mexico, the classic period. Look at that. Let me zoom in. Alright, look at that. Look at his hair. Look at that. Alright, look at her. Resembling an Egyptian queen. Alright. And it says this is a Negroid girl. Look at her hair. Let me just zoom in on that. I can see that. Alright, look at that. Look at her hair. Alright. Look at that. Alright, so check this one out. It says 9A, pre-classic head from Ecuador, Esmeralda style. Look at her. And then look at her. Right, look at her hair. B, it says head from the Huasteca region, Panuco style. Huasteca. Look at this. Look at this. Who was living in Veracruz? Who were they enslaving? Alright, again, this is why I'm showing you this. This is really enslaving, and then sent it to Haiti and their other colonies, and even to Seville, Spain, over to West Africa, and at times bringing them back, calling them African. Slavery really enslaving. Look at this. Here we go. I don't have to say much. This is an Olmec head. We already know about this, right? We already know. Colossal Olmec head, La Venta, now in the museum, Park Villahermosa, Tabasco, Mexico, representing a mighty Negroid personage, right? We know that already. Look at this guy. He got a full beard. A small 9-inch stone figure from Mezcala region in Guerrero.
no similarity to the full Vader stone head from Dr. M. Leo collection of the jacket of this book. Alright, so take a look at this one. It says this was from Xochipala Heads, Guerrero Pre-Classic. A beautiful upper-class girl and a primitive man with strong features. Both seem very much alive and show a marked affinity with ancient Egyptian art. Height of heads 4 centimeters. You see that? You see her? Oh, you see this over here? And down here we got 7A, right? This one right here. It says realistic figurine from Las Bocas, Puebla, Mexico. Middle pre-classic. All right, and it says B, a powerful Negroid mask. Negroid. Just because he looks like a, the way he looks, he's being called Negroid. Alright, so use your senses, right? What are they showing you? Look at this liveliness. Look at this person's personality. This was depicted from a real person. Look at that. A little bit more ahead in the book, he says, in connection with the question of Negroes in America, again, we're in the book Unexpected Faces of America based on the pottery they found there, all right? I should mention also the investigations conducted by the Mexican scientist Dr. A.D. Garay on the presence of Negro blood in one of the oldest and most secluded tribes in Mexico, the Lacandones. Dr. Garay is the director of the genetic program of the National Commission of Nuclear Energy in Mexico. Wow. His report includes a reference to the sickle cell, a malaria-resistant mutant gene usually found only in the blood of Black people. During the first International Festival of Negro Art in Dakar, I was invited to exhibit my material of early representations of Negroes in pre-Columbian America. I displayed 64 photographs and 25 artifacts, which I had brought with me from America, in the library of the Assemblée Nationale. I had investigated this unexpected phenomenon for many years, but in Dakar I was able, for the first time, to present my findings to Africans who obviously know what a Negro is and what he looks like. My point of view that these ancient American sculptures could be considered truthful representations of Negroes was amply confirmed by everyone, including the president of Senegal, Leopold Sédar Senghor. All right, now did you hear that, right? So he started showing all the pottery, all the pictures he took, and all the artifacts he was bringing to them over there, right at the car, where they were on that side of the world over there, to all these Africans, right? And they clearly told them, yeah, this is us. This is, they look like us. These are Negroes, right? All right? Or people that look like Negroes from Africa, right? But these are Americans. We had our own Aboriginal, autochthonous people over here in America. You understand that? And confirmed by the president of Senegal. When Alexander showed him these pictures from America, he's like, whoa, yep, those are Negroes, right? What they call you, right? They tag you as a Negro, but, you had many names and titles, many tribes, many nations, right? And it wasn't about skin color over here. There's some more images right here. You see this brother again with the arms crossed, just like Black Panther. You see the beard coming down. Look at his features. As they say, the natives didn't have beard, but you see all these brothers that got beards. You see, look at the hair right here. Alright, so check this one out. Look at this brother. Let me just zoom in so you can see what I'm talking about. Just zoom in. Look at this. Alright, check out this. Alright. So this is what he was showing to these Africans, and they were letting them know, yeah, those are Black people. That's what they were saying. They were probably saying, yeah, those are Africans, according to their hijack views. Right? So you see the beard here. Alright. Clearly Negroid representations in America can be identified as early as 1200 to 650 BC, at least in terracotta and other materials known at present. This time would extend in the Old World from the reign of Ramses III and the later Libyan rulers in Tanis, Lower Egypt, to the epoch of the Ethiopian or Nubian domination of Egypt, including the 25th dynasty and the Negro king Taharka. It would, of course, also include the period of Assyrian trust against the Phoenician city-states in Asia Minor, since nobody can believe that Negroes ever tramped all the way through Siberia and crossed Bering Strait and Alaska to arrive very much later in the warmer parts of the American continent. The only acceptable interpretation for their presence here at the above-mentioned time would be transatlantic voyages, a phenomenon that sooner or later will have to be explained. At this point, it might be appropriate to recall the navigation skill of the Phoenicians and the excellent quality and magnificent organization of their ships given us by contemporary eyewitnesses. So look at him. This polychrome terracotta figurine from the island of Jaina, presumably representing a Mayan version of the Phoenician god Bes. A Mayan version of the Phoenician god Bes. All right, so we always got all the versions, every version of every deity in the world here. So what is that telling you? Are we looking at the originals? All right, where's the real duplicates? All right, check this out now. Check this out, all right? 18A, this one right here. What is that? What is that? It says a Negroid head made from a black copal with thick golden lips and teeth. What? Thick golden lips and teeth. Is this a grill? Is this one of the original grills? Cocle region, Panama. That's a grill for sure. Circa AD 900. It says B over here, right? This guy, this figure, this sculpture right here says a gold piece from Colombia, Quimbaya region, circa AD 600, belonging to the Gold Museum in Bogota. This piece was recently, summer of 1974, on exhibition at the Center for Inter-American Relations in New York, where this photo was taken by the author. All right, so if this person didn't take a photo of this sculpture here, of this gold piece, we would never probably have known about it. But look at it. Oh, looks like a football helmet. But look at what he's got. Look at his neck. Just like in some of the African tribes, they're extending the neck. You see that? All right, you see the grill? It says here, the stretched neck and the Africanized Roman helmet. All right, so Africanized Roman helmet and stretched neck. So we gotta dodge the hijack. That's why they put it in parentheses, because they don't know if it's African. Our most noteworthy, the stick across the mouth might be related to an ancient ceremony still performed in Zaire. All right, so that they carry this from over here. All right, look at this. All right, the grill, first grills, right? You think they didn't rock grills over there? All right, so look. Nice. Check out this figure right here. Look at her. Look at the features on this. All right, this is from, it says pre-classic Negroid head from Chiapas, Mexico. All right, that's in the bottom of Mexico near Guatemala. The figure over to the right, it says a rare Semite with blonde beard. A beard, blonde, I don't see it's blonde, but it says Semite. Shemite, Hebrew, is that what he's saying? Fresco in Tela, Teotihuacan. Look at that, look how he's dressed. And again, it says here, a rare Negroid head of Zapotecan vessel from Oaxaca. All right, look at this. Private collection, Chicago. All right. And it says, to the right, it says a vigorous...
Remember when I tell y'all, a lot of these stuff is in people's private collections? All through my academia, when I went to the Grand Canyon and saw all that Egyptian stuff in the mounds and the pyramids, a lot of stuff is in people's private collections. And I was just fortunate enough through my academia studies to meet professors and meet those that did it, older professors, men and women, and their children went into it, all the ancient books with all this stuff in. I have them all, and I give gratitude.
Terracotta head from Manabi, Ecuador, classic period. This one right here, look, from Ecuador. Look at this. All right, look at that. All right, so this is a good one right here. I've seen this on the internet. We've used it a lot. All right,
look at his face, his toppy, his tarboose.
Look at him. Look at this brother right here. Look at the features on him. You can almost see this person's personality, who he was. It says classic Mochica. That's over in Peru.
That's a Mo.
Mexica.
A Mochica.
Mochi. Right? Portrait vessel from Peru, circa AD 600. This exquisite piece is similar to the two
Moorish-looking heads and colored plates. Moorish, because you see the cabbies got on, right? But this is the true old world, all right? Says here, head of Totonac, dancer from Veracruz, showing the subtle fusion of Asiatic and Negroid features. All right, look at that. All right, look at that. Because you are the original people. It's called The Conquest of America by Tessevet.
Got that too for y'all. Maybe pause. I got the alarm.
Like, all right, so let's continue. See who he is, how many awards he had, and how scholarly he is, and how respected he is. All right, so he actually wrote things that most people don't write when they're talking about the conquest, but he didn't censor himself, and he lets it all out in his book. A lot of the cruelties and what really was going on here, right? So we're going to page 133, and let me just zoom in. And he says, without going into detail and merely to give a general idea, even if we do not feel entirely justified in rounding off figures when it is a question of human lives, it will be recalled that in the 1500, the world population is approximately 400 million, of whom 80 million inhabit the Americas. By the middle of the 16th century, out of these 80 million, there remain 10. So 10 million. Or limiting ourselves to Mexico, on the eve of the conquest, its population is about 25 million. In 1600, it is 1 million. If the word genocide has ever been applied to a situation with some accuracy, this is here the case. So he's letting you know.
And let me show you something too that I got from the museum. You probably can get this on Amazon, but I got it from my nobles. This St. Mark, right? Watch this. You see them top, and you see the Moors. You see what it says? Porphyry sculpture originating from Constantinople, the Tetrarchs or Moors. The Tetrarchs or Moors, 4th century Egyptian art. Let me zoom up on that for a little closer. See what this way. You see it? Originated from Constantinople, the Tetrarchs or Moors. 4th century Egyptian art. And you see what they do? They try to break them noses off. Always. Look at the faces. Look at the detail of them brothers. Yeah.
If you really do this research and the study, and you're talking about keeping track of genocides and Holocaust, right? If you really did the research, if the word genocide has ever been applied to a situation with some accuracy, and we're talking about the conquest of the Americas, the invasion, Papa Bull, 1452, this is here the case. It constitutes a record, not only in relative terms, a destruction on the order of 90% or more, but also in absolute terms, since we are speaking of a population diminution estimated at 70 million human lives. 70 million estimated. None of the great massacres of the 20th century can be compared to this hecatomb. All right, none. Letting you know right now, doesn't matter how many people take this as offense, you can't compare what happened to the ancestors here in the Americas. Can't compare any massacre. We're talking about the so-called Jewish Holocaust, which those numbers are questioned by their own scholars, 6 million. We know there was newspapers. I'm sorry to say this, but we know there was newspapers in the 20s here in the Americas, in the 20s and 30s, already talking about 6 million people had died. in Germany, a genocide. They were already using that number, propaganda. They haven't found that number yet, the evidence for that number yet. Go research that. So again, nothing compares what's happening, in the Middle East, in Africa, even though it's unfortunate what's happened in those places too, it doesn't compare. It doesn't compare, can't be compared to this hecatomb. It will be understood how vain are the efforts made by certain authors to dissipate what has been called the Black Legend of Spain's responsibility for this genocide.
I lost my son, Jacob Rodriguez, to accidental fentanyl overdose. We lost our son,
It's called Studies in History, Economics, and Public Law, edited by the Faculty of Political Science of Columbia University. And it says, Indian slavery in colonial times within the present limits of the United States. Indian slavery by Almond Wheeler Lauber, PhD.
Did y'all
New
get
York,
that?
Columbia University, 1930.
I hope y'all got that. For my
So we're in
non-students.
chapter 2 of the book Indian Slavery in Colonial Times Within the Present Limits of the United States.
I sent this to you.
And chapter 2 is Enslavement by the Spaniards. And it begins, in their attitude toward the Indians, the Spaniards simply applied the theory of their time regarding slavery. The taking of slaves was then considered part of any expedition of discovery or conquest. So it was a normal thing for the Spaniards to do. It was part of what they did when they so-called discovered something, right? Or when they went into conquest. The high authority of the church sanctioned the institution of slavery to the extent that the leading theologians had declared all barbarous and infidel nations who shut their ears to the truths of Christianity fair objects of rapine, captivity, and slavery. Again, so this is from the high authority of the church, which meant the Vatican, the papal bull they're talking about. If you didn't accept Christ or Jesus, you were a pagan, all right, or an infidel. You were declared a barbarous infidel if you didn't want to hear the truths of Christianity, all right. So because of that, you were open to be put in captivity and slavery, all right. Remember, this is a very scholarly article telling you how it really went down.
I hope y'all writing this down for my non-students.
Prior to 1500. As noted earlier, Columbus was the major supplier of American slaves prior to 1500. As noted earlier, he caused some 3,000 to perhaps 6,000 slaves to be sent to Europe. And also, if we are to believe that his plans were implemented to the Azores, Canary, Madeira, and Cabo Verde Islands. By the year 1500, however, a great escalation began in the shipment of Americans across the Atlantic, since other Spaniards and the Portuguese became directly active. In the year 1500, Americans were directly transported to Europe from the Caribbean islands, from the coast of South America, and from the Terra Nova, Newfoundland region, that's up there in Canada. 3 major new sources of slaves were thus opened up, and it is necessary to examine this subject before
Nova
proceeding
Scotia.
to an analysis of what happened to the Americans when they arrived in eastern lands.
So right from the beginning, the plan was to enslave the ancestors. They were bringing them to all their colonies, wherever that was in the world, especially over to Europe. As it says here, this is way before the so-called transatlantic slave trade. Or did we just skip all this part of history? All right, so very important, you're going to start seeing the numbers add up, but you're going to start seeing all these references, American Indians being brought actually to that side of the world. Seville, Lisbon, West Africa, especially Cape Verde. All right, so Lisbon and Seville were actual slave ports. They not just American Indians, they would bring Africans up there and, white European slaves as well. There were some up there. All right, do the history.
feeling regarding the relation of the Indians to the Spaniards is well expressed by Hernando de Escalante Fontanero, who was with Menendez in Florida as an interpreter. In writing of Florida, he declared it his belief that the Indians can never be made submissive and become Christians. So he advocated that they all be taken, placed on ships, and scattered throughout the various islands and even on the Spanish Main, where they might be sold as His Majesty sells his vessels to the grandees in Spain. You heard that, right? So he's saying, since they're so hard to enslave, they're never going to be Christians. They're not, they're rebels. They don't want to be, following Christianity. They don't want to be worked. They don't want to be, put in fields or become servants. So let's just enslave them. He's basically telling you, send them to their different colonies, put them in ships. Deuteronomy 28, place on ships.
Now I'm gonna narrate something for you. I got to do the work. See this science right here? The Negro Question by Lee Cummins. Watch this. The African slave ships that came from Judah. Now remember I told you about cartographers and things. Let me narrate something. We're gonna get back to the film. Watch this. When the European powers carved up Africa, it was the custom of the European kings in those days to send out a cartographer, which is a map maker, to outline and pinpoint the holdings. It was a cartographer in 1747 who went by the name of Emmanuel Boland. This man held the title of royal cartographer for two European kings, King George II of England and King Louis of France. But what's unusual, family, about the map that Emmanuel Boland brought back to these two kings is that the center of the map, Bowen showed that the true name of the so-called slave coast was none other than Judah. Judah was known by 4 different names at the time. Judah, W-H-I-D-A-H, Wahuda, Quida, Q-U-I-D-H, or Abir, A-B-I-E-R. And what does this mean? It means we have proof from the royal map maker himself that Judah was indeed listed among the inhabitants of Africa. Of even greater interest is the fact that the maps were not disputed by the two kings. And you have to do well to take heed to the fact that the British laid claim to the so-called slave coast and that its inhabitants were sold into British colonies, and one being in North America. And how authentic is the map? You can find these maps in Northwestern University, all this stuff. I lectured this before. I can show you that on page 67 of this publication, written at Louisiana State, called Creole New Orleans, Race of Americanization, page 67 of the publication. It notes of a white slavery calling the inventory of human beings on a cargo ship. And let's see what he say. He writes 16 slave trading ships arrived from Senegal region. 6 ships came from Judah and landed at the mouth of the Mississippi. And in 1731, one ship from Judah landed 464 slaves at the mouth of the Mississippi. And on page 69, it states the Company of India had a trading post at Judah, the Gulf of Benin. Man, that's Africa. There is complete, and there it competed with all the nations of Europe. The Portuguese, now here we're talking about the Portuguese, right? With the Portuguese slave trade, was taking upper hand at Judah. This is in Northwestern University, Boston University, and Louisiana State, having in a possession in the documents. And you also have a town named Ajuda that existed before the Portuguese ever stepped foot on West African soil. And the kingdom of Judah, slave coast, was controlled by the British, and all of the black Jews came poured into the British colonies. When I show you all pictures and things, the history is there. And then the last one, when he was talking about how when they make a description from the natives and so-called Negroes, let me see if I can find this in one of these old books I got from one of this professor, Black History and Achievements in America, an overview of the Black struggle. Let's see if I can find it, because I had it highlighted. I lectured this a long time ago when I was getting my dual master's degree. And it was in here talking about Negroes, and then it was talking about how you ain't finna enslave these certain type of people. Let me play the film.
Scattered throughout the various islands, and even on the Spanish Main. What does that mean? The New Spain and even Europe. Given this attitude on the subject, it was but natural that the enslavement of the American Indians should begin with the discovery of the Antilles. and that it should be continued by the explorers on the mainland. The Spanish exploring expeditions were war expeditions in the sense that they aimed to conquer and retain for the crown the territory through which they passed. All these expeditions, so-called expeditions, captured and retained Indians as slaves. All of them. All these Spaniards were coming here to enslave. They weren't bringing Africans. All these expeditions captured and retained Indians as slaves. Indians, not Africans. Yet in some cases, it might be difficult to determine whether the Indians enslaved were captives taken in actual warfare or whether they were merely kidnapped.
All right. Now watch this. I'm finna narrate something. Here go this one science, because I got to do it as a teacher. Black history. Now watch this. I'm gonna give you a little bit of what they say. Blacks and slavery. Whether Spain or West Africa was the first to begin the black slave tradition, it is not clearly recorded in history. Okay, we know. As early as the 9th century AD, a Ghana king was trading slaves to Arab merchants for goods for the East. When 15th century Portuguese explorers first reached West Africa, they found slave trading part of the social and business climate as it had been in Portugal and Spain. The first blacks coming to the New World were not taken directly from Africa, but from Europe. As early as the 14th century, if not before, Portugal and Spain had begun to take Africans to Europe as slaves, as an important source of labor in the European port, and as servants. The Europeans justified this invasion of human rights on the basis they allowed Africans to cast off their heathenism and become Christians. Thus, it was natural for Europeans when they came to America to bring the African to do the work they had been doing as slaves. There was never a time that the whites in their exploration of the New World were without blacks. There were blacks accompanying Balboa when he discovered the Pacific in 1513, when Cortez conquered Mexico in 1519. He had blacks accompanying him as servants, as workers, who planted and harvested the wheat crops. When Alvarado explored equatorial South America, blacks accompanied him. Of course, Estevanco, who explored Southwest, was black. So watch this. The right rulers came to understand that whites did not make good slaves or servants. They were conscious of their rights, and white men sued in their courts for relief. Come on, what's your nationality? What's your race? What's your status? Free white. I hope you understand what I'm saying. Also, they were not easily identified as slaves belonging to a particular master. Listen to this. Blacks and slavery. Indians did not resolve the problem as slaves. First, the whites needed greater quantities of slaves than the Indians provided. Second, Indians were more susceptible to disease than blacks and either got sick or died more quickly. Third, the Indians' pride gave him a fierce determination to revolt and fight against the wrath and inhumanity of being a slave. Yeah, the black man presented few, if any, of the difficulties that the white or the Indian presented. The black man could be purchased as a slave for life. The black man came from Africa, where paganism was a way of life. He had little or no exposure to Christianity. The black man's will to survive under the worst conditions without impunity had been proven. See?
Expedition passing through their territory, and they were kidnapped most of the time. Often the expeditions possessed the double character of a war party and a kidnapping company. The admiral, always dwelling upon the spiritual welfare of the cannibal natives, proposed that the more of them that could be captured, the better it would be, and then mingling temporal advantages to Spaniards with spiritual blessings to the natives, he explained that the quantities of livestock and other necessaries required by the colonists might be paid for by the sale of slaves sent back to Spain in the ships, which would bring these supplies several times a year to the colony. All right, send slaves in ships to Europe. All right, Deuteronomy 28. You've been only looking at one side of the story. The sovereigns are to be reminded that they may collect duties on this slave trade, and an early answer decided in order that the arrangements for the newcomers may be pushed forward. Remember, Columbus was a slave trader before he went to the Americas. During a voyage which resulted in the discovery of Jamaica,
and other islands. He visited that of San Juan, Puerto Rico, for the purpose of capturing more cannibals. And on his return to Hispaniola, after some hostility, a degree of tranquility was established in Columbus laid a tribute upon the entire population of the island, which required that each Indian above 14 years of age who lived in the mining provinces was to pay a little bell filled with gold every 3 months. The natives of all other provinces were to pay 1 arroba of cotton. All right, and I know we're going to read that we're going to see what happened when you didn't fill this quota, what they did to them. These amounts were so excessive that in 1496 it was found necessary to change the nature of the payment, and instead of the gold and cotton required from the villages, labor was substituted, the Indians being required to lay out and work the plantations of the colonists in their vicinity, forced labor. This was the germ of the cruel, oppressive repartimientos and encomiendas. All right. Again, this was just another way of saying, these contracts, these indentured servitude contracts that they put the Indians in, but eventually they never let them be free after it. But this is what they were calling it. It was repartimientos and encomiendas. So encomienda would be the indentured servitude, which were destined to depopulate the islands and to bring the indelible stigma on the Spanish colonial system in the Indies. In the year 1496, Bartolomé Columbus sent 300 natives who were convicted or accused of killing Spaniards to Spain to be sold as slaves. Again, now we're talking about Christopher Columbus' brother. Yes, if you don't know, he had a brother, and this is his name, Bartolomé Columbus. It says Bartolomé Columbus sent 300 natives who were convicted or accused of killing Spaniards to Spain to be sold as slaves. Follow the paper trail. You're going to realize that these same slaves, remember, 1496, right? 1496. We're going to see later on who was already in Spain and all these places by 98, 1496, 1494, and what were they calling them? They were bringing American Indians over there and calling them Negroes over there when they were selling them. 1494, they were in Lisbon, pretos or Negros, blacks, non-whites of various colors, including reddish or copper-colored people.
Morris, what does Stevie Wonder song say? What is called indentured people? In 1492, you fell upon our shores, 700 years educated by the Moors. He can even see that.
Probably Americans, perhaps brought from the West Indies by Columbus, from Brazil by an unknown Portuguese navigator, or most likely from Newfoundland. So this is in 1494, just 2 years after Columbus. There was already many copper-colored people, or Negroes, pretos, right, in France and Spain, in Portugal. Interesting, January 11, 1503, a sailor from Lisbon presented for sale in Valencia, Spain, 5 Negroes. One of them was Miguel, the 20-year-old de Terra Nova, so from Newfoundland. He was a Negro from Newfoundland in 1503 being sold in Valencia, Spain. In 1505,
Negro named Miguel.
Was a slave, Juan, 16 years old, from Terra Nova.
All right, so I hope you guys are listening. All right, so now this is important, All right, so this is way before any so-called transatlantic slave trade, and there's already American Indians being sold in Seville, Spain, as Negroes. Right, this is in their records over there, and they have these sealed up. You can go over there locally if anybody wants to go verify.
Yep,
and
we
go
already
to their
did.
registers and go look at all their slave transactions and record keeping and all that stuff, and you'll see what they were doing, and they were listing them as Negroes. All right.
Nova, again, Newfoundland, America, another Negro. Thus, Miguel was born in 1483.
All right. That's an hour. I only like to play the film for an hour at a time. I hope everybody got a chance to look at some scholarship books. All my muftis, I got them. I've been sending them to y'all. But remember, this book is probably still sitting in their libraries. The History of the Reign of Ferdinand and Isabella. You need this. Your children need this book. You need this book. This is one of the most important wars in history. You have to have it. The Catholic, the war of Ferdinand and Isabella, the Catholic, you got to know what this is all about. And everybody need to stop arguing, but most of our brothers are not scholars. I hope one day, man, we get back to what we was doing instead of just watching people talk stuff about people. It's so goofy. I've been seeing these grown men with their Moorish TVs. Somebody sent me something the other day. I said, man, I don't entertain that type of stuff. All that stuff is just like those other people, those ladies that be talking about entertainers and all that. That's what these brothers be doing, talking about each other, and they all know each other. It's just a game. So with that being said, man, I love everybody, man. Like I said, we'll finish the film tomorrow if time permits. And thanks for joining in. Peace.